Hello students, today I will be teaching you how your bodies work. Everyone get naked.
Thanks for saving me, Spider-Man. That was highly appreciated on my part because I was in trouble. Hello,
my name is Coby Cook. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Fairborn, Ohio, and I am an amateur homegrown stuntman. I've pepper sprayed myself. I've set myself on fire. I've jumped off houses. And now, I want to cause the reason why I want to do this is because I'm an adrenaline junkie who loves to exercise. And I see this as a perfect opportunity to prove to everyone and myself that I have what it takes. And also, I don't necessarily have hard, but my love is How's it going? Welcome back to episode 6, maybe? 6 or 7, something like that, of Coby Manifesto. The series has been going good. I'm pretty happy with how it's been going. And the view count is telling me how well this series is doing. You know, there's one topic that I've been dying to talk about, and that's teachers. And not just teachers, but just school and my school experience as a whole. It would give people insight into the kind of life I had growing up. And I think a lot of people will be able to connect some dots with this insight. Yeah, I don't know. I would say that I had a school life which is equivalent to a Jeffrey Dahmer or, maybe a Warren Jeffs. Yeah, I don't know. School wasn't always the easiest thing or the best thing for me. I definitely had some rough, bad times, but I survived. And I think that's the slogan for any graduate of your average public school is, I survived. So, fun fact, I was actually the class president for my freshman and sophomore year. And this didn't really entail much. I really didn't pick or do much of anything. It was more of a putting a face on the class. And, any class with this face as their leader, their Führer, is fucked. To this day, I kind of believe that I was voted in the same way that a class would vote a autistic kid to be prom king. But at the same time, it was also to get back at some of the more, the quote-unquote popular kids. The weeks leading up to the actual election for who would be class president, I heard nonstop thrown at me that it was a popularity contest. And a lot of people were telling me I shouldn't even try because I was going against a varsity cheerleading captain. Her name was... And anybody who was aware of this probably would have told you that she would have won. However, I had a few tricks up my sleeve. For one, I knew that her friends wouldn't want to vote for her because the woman mind kind of doesn't want another woman to be raised above themselves. I shouldn't say a woman's mind. This is more of that preppy sort of like, bitchy sort of plastic female. They don't want another woman to be on a pedestal above them. So I knew to go directly to her friends and, whatever candy or whatever, I think I gave out buttons. Whatever thing I had to give out to people, I would always make sure to give to her friends. You can't tell me I didn't get a couple of their votes off of that. The second thing, and the more important thing, was knowing which race of kids would take what kind of candy. So, the Spanish kids, I got them red hot tamale candy. And the black kids, I gave them cowtails. And I would like to think that pretty much got the minority vote in my class. And that's a lesson for anybody else who is going to try to sway a black vote. Just give them cowtails, and they'll be on your side. And I remember the day they were reading off the votes. It was at the end of the day. It was 8th period. Before that, I had gotten a lot of people who were telling me, I voted for you. And I was like, a lot of these people have to be full of shit because there's no way every single person voted for me. They start to go to read the names, and they're like, and the class president for the freshman class, Coby Cook. And I remember I jumped up because that surprised me. I was actually kind of excited because, for one, I wasn't a popular kid, and I had kind of shown that the popularity thing was all bullshit. At least if you put your mind towards it. But the funnier thing that happened was the girl I ran against, apparently, now this is just what I've been told, but I've been told this by several people, and every story is the same, so it sounds true. Apparently, that girl got up out of her seat and ran out of the class crying because I beat her. And it was, I thought it was pretty funny. I'm not going to lie, for a split second, I was going to say something to her about, good job or something like that. But then I realized, if she would have beat me, do you think that bitch would have said anything to me? Or what? Don't you think it would have been a ha-ha with, what the fuck were you thinking even going for this? So, I never said anything to her. And then immediately afterwards, all of her friends started posting on Twitter, Coby shouldn't have won, a bunch of stuff just calling me out. And I remember reading through them all with my mom, just laughing. I was in a class meeting, and it was just me and my teacher advisor, who, she wasn't the brightest teacher advisor, but she was nice to me at least, you know what I mean? She liked working with me. I remember it was just me and her, and she walked out of the room. She said, I'll be back in like 10 minutes. And I was like, I wonder if she has the votes somewhere. So I looked on her desk, and by God, there was an envelope that had the actual votes for who won. And I took them out and I looked. And out of 220 kids, I got 160 votes. Which then made me start wondering, was it actually because I was popular? No, it was just because nobody wanted to see that bitch win. And I was the martyr. Which leads me to my sophomore year. I decided to run again. And this time when I ran, I was up against the varsity quarterback. I'm talking the starting varsity quarterback. My football team wasn't the best, so naturally we had a sophomore starting quarterback. Lord knows why. More or less, it was a repeat of the year before. I ran against him and I beat him. He's a little more receptive to the results, and he was like, okay, I got beat. Now, I'm sure he was cursing my name behind my back, but he at least told me congratulations, we shook hands, hoo-ha, the whole world works. But the reason the sophomore thing is important is because my class advisor was one of the biggest douchebags of teachers I've ever met, and probably to this day has remained my least favorite teacher that I've ever had to interact with. He was a Spanish teacher for us, and I had a Spanish class on the side, and he would basically spend most of the class making jokes and trying to roast people. And me being a class advisor, let alone the class president, I was a target of a lot of it. Now, a normal Coby would fight back and would, roast his fat ass back. But I realized that I didn't know Spanish. So I just kind of took it knowing that by the end of the year, he would have ripped me so much and I would have took so much of it that he would at the very least have to give me a C, which is what he did. I did not deserve to pass that class, but he was, I don't know, he felt bad for a lot of the way he treated me. And I mean, there were times where I wanted to punch him in his face. There really was. So I ended up getting a passing grade in that class, which, was worth it in the end because I don't need this fucking Spanish teacher's approval of who I am. And I don't know, he always carried himself like his approval was something that was necessary. It's not. And, I've echoed this several times, but people need to learn that their respect isn't really worth anything. Like, nothing disgusts me about a person more than somebody who says, I've lost respect for you. Okay, who gives a fuck? Nobody was fucking clamoring for your fucking respect to begin with. So from there, I bet a lot of people are saying, so obviously you would have ran for class president junior year. Well, no. The reason I didn't run junior year is because I went to a vocational school. For those of you who don't know, vocational school is basically just a trade school. They teach tons of different things for, late high school kids, kind of to give them a head start in their careers. Oh my God, that was gross. Basically, they give them a head start in their careers, which is something I also want to take a second and talk about. People have this idea of vocational schools like so ass backwards, because you ask anybody who's not familiar with one and they'll say that I feel like I have to burp, but it's not coming. I had some Skyline chili dogs, and I feel like there's just like a ball of chili stuck right here. Yeah, anybody you ask about vocational schools will tell you that vocational schools are for kids who are giving up on their lives. At least at my school couldn't have been farther from the truth. It was actually for the kids who had some sort of idea of what they wanted to do down the line, and they wanted to get a head start on that. So, yeah, not to mention with the whole bad kids argument, my school basically had it was like a 3 strikes rule, only it was 2 strikes. So the first bad thing you do, you get a warning. And then the second time you do something bad, you're gone from the school. So more or less, I saw nothing bad happen at the Career Center because it was all these kids who were dying to be there. So they were making sure they were good enough to stay. I saw 1 fist fight out of the entirety of my 2 years there, which when you put some of the quote unquote bad kids and the pregnant moms into like one building, there's definitely some animosity. And the other thing was there was an exceptional amount of openly racist kids, which, you only get 1 or 2 of in a public school. I'm not saying there's only 1 or 2 racist, but there's only 1 or 2 that are openly racist, because the rest of them are at least smart enough to realize they still have to make it through the rest of their day without getting beat up by a black kid. At my school, there was a good amount, I'd say nearly a dozen, and a majority of them were automotive kids, which is weird because automotive had a fair share of black people. So it was just this weird dynamic at all times, and you would think with a classroom of half racists and half black kids that there would have been way more confrontations, but surprisingly enough, there wasn't. So do with that information what you will. So one of my 2 teachers was a quote-unquote movie maker. He had said that he had directed movies. When you get on his IMDb page, he had like 2 movies listed, and when you look them up, they're equivalent of the videos I make. So, am I a filmmaker? He had this, this way, dirty jokes aren't what real filmmaking is all about. Cussing, that'll never get you anywhere in filmmaking. He was a very narcissistic teacher, so every lesson seemed to go back to this movie he made when he was, 10 years prior, and that's the only thing he's had any credit on. Just everything always turned into how or what he did, what he's done. And, I remember asking him, how many people does it take to make a movie like you made? And his response was basically like, oh, just me. I did the camera work, the editing, blah, blah. I did this, I did that. It's basically only me who made the movie. And that was kind of the moment I realized, like, okay, this dude's a bit of a piece of shit. Like, I don't know, he's just trying to take credit for making an entire movie, which I feel like isn't a good thing. I feel like you need other people. But he was the better of the two teachers. I'm not ready to say he was a predator, but he had very predatorial instincts. For example, there was a day this girl came in. She was this mixed girl who had gigantic tits. I'm talking huge fucking like triple D titties. And she had a lot of cleavage showing. So her it was like out to here and you could see so much cleavage. And the teacher says, that's too much cleavage. You have to go down to the office. She was like, oh, it's not too much cleavage. You don't know what you're talking about. And my based teacher took a pencil, threw it on the floor and said, if there's not too much cleavage, pick the pencil up. Like, that's fucked up because this is the teacher saying this to a 16-year-old girl. But it was kind of funny. The next day, the girl's mom came to the school and ripped his ass apart. And it was a really, really funny situation. I don't know, there was just always stuff like that was happening. It was these little like snide sex comments and, showing the class documentaries that had lots of nudity, which, first off, I don't think I'm bitching about that. Like, I can't take a little bit of nudity. But when you package that along with the sexual comments he had made, it gives you this sort of like weird big picture of like who this guy is, and you just kind of wonder what's lying underneath the surface. So I graduated, and that teacher the next year was fired. And I started reaching out to people, and I started asking people why that teacher was fired. And I finally got a hold of somebody who was able to give me the full story because they were in the class. More or less, he was giving a lesson on censorship, like the black bars you see over people's face when you watch a movie or a show. He was trying to teach the students how to do that. So a normal teacher would give you some sort of clip of people walking by and they'd say the guy in the red shirt needs to have his face censored. Instead, this teacher, again based, put a raw 20-second clip of a stripper who was topless and made the kids put his face over her boobs while she danced on a pole. And I want you to remember, these are 16-year-old kids. Regardless of how base that is, yeah, he's doing this in a public school setting. Like, especially with some of the strikes he's already had for the sexual stuff, why would he do that? So yeah, that teacher was fired, and the other one, the first teacher I talked about, took over. And I'm not the biggest fan of that first teacher, but at least he's not sexually predatoring the children. And I don't know, I've had some really, really bad teachers, and there's been some really bad teachers that have crossed paths with me. I think the worst has to be, his name is, he's a piece of shit. So this guy has very alt-right views of how the world works, with which, I don't give a fuck what your political views are, as long as you're a fucking decent person who would pull somebody out of water if they drowned, which is how I measure a person's worth, is that if somebody was drowning, would you help them? If you could. I'm not saying you gotta risk your life. But this teacher was posting alt-right political views on a Fairborn school's Twitter account. And I'm talking saying stuff like, they deserve to be hung. Women shouldn't get knocked up if they don't want to have an abortion. And, just that kind of stuff. And he was posting it from the Fairborn yearbook account. He still posts on Facebook to this day some very weird beliefs, but at least they're on his profile. Like, that's sad. This old man's only time that anybody pays attention to him is when he posts on an account that's not his. Another teacher that I had was, his name was Damn. He got in trouble for duct taping this kid's hands together, and they fired him, and now he works at a Dollar General. But this was like the most bipolar fucking teacher in the world. I'm talking laughing, thinks everybody's fun, thinks the life is worth living. And then somebody would clap too loud and he would fucking... And I think a lot of it came from the fact he was an incel. By the way, the only reason I know any of this is because he would share it with us. So every now and again we would walk into the class and he would give us his life woes. Yeah, his life woes. So I guess it's better he duct taped the kids' hands together than, punted them. And I'm not going to say we weren't necessarily, the best students to him. We had this game we would play in his class specifically called Classroom Search and Destroy. Basically, there would be 2 teams of 3. And the first team would have to plant the bomb. So you would lay down behind the teacher. I'm talking on your stomach on the floor. And you would act like you're planting the bomb. And you would have to count to 10. The other team had 20 minutes to go up behind the teacher and lay on the ground, flatten their stomach for 10 seconds. And that would defuse the bomb. And we played that every day in his class for weeks. And it got to the point where, like 3 days in a row, he turned around and there's just a fucking kid laying on the ground behind him. And a buddy of mine ended up getting suspended for like 3 days because of it. So we stopped playing the game. That, and then also there were other kids that started fucking playing it. And once other people start doing it, it kind of takes the fun out of it because it wasn't a unique thing only we were doing it anymore. Somebody commented on my YouTube video, my Jackass Lost Media. Will there be a part 2 to this? Probably not. I'm lazy. I don't know. The only other teacher that I can think about was he was my health teacher from middle school. And I remember always hearing from the girls about how much of a creep he was. And I don't know. It was like, I feel like a lot of the guys, including me, never saw that side. But also remember I was a 7th grade retard. Yeah, all the girls would always say how creepy he was or he was looking at weird stuff on his computer. But as I got older, I kept hearing that from all of these different women because I talked to so many women because I'm a fucking G, that he was a creep. And you would start to hear stories and, all this stuff about him. And, I kind of started to realize, like, this dude was a weirdo. And it got to the point where, like, some of the closest people to me were telling me that. And I was like, was I incorrect? Well, not incorrect because I didn't really have an opinion on him, but was I blind to the creepiness which he was exhibiting towards women of my grade? And, if you go to Fairborn and you're hearing this, you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. This guy, regardless of if it's true or not, there are plenty and plenty of female students that he's had that he has made feel this way. And I'm not ready to just say, he did this and he's an awful person and a pervert and this kind of stuff, because I do believe in due process. But where there's smoke, if in the next couple of years I see some sort of news story about him, I won't be shocked. But, I think that's probably a good place to stop it. More or less, this was just me bitching about some of the bad teachers of my life. Yeah, if you're watching this and you're still in high school yourself, you'll make it out of it, man. High school is nothing that, it's definitely not your peak, or it definitely shouldn't be. And Anybody who's peaking right now is going to have a very sad downfall while you're still rising, baby. I've seen it happen to a lot of people. I've seen very sad stuff happen to people that, you know, I'm only 5 years out. You know, people have multiple kids. I've seen people go to jail for life. I've seen people die. And I'm not saying that's good, but it's a natural part of your high school career. And, you know, if shit ain't going your way right now, it'll go better, man. There's no reason to be all down and out because you're a fucking nerd or you're some fucking fag that the girls don't notice. You know, sooner or later, a girl will notice you, especially if you stay, you know, employed. Sooner or later, she'll need to have an extra source of income to help pay her water bill. And as long as you keep your job, she'll come around, bud. You'll be her last resort. It sucks that that's how it is, but that's really true what it is. And you know, if you're lucky, you're gonna get a mega dime. And you know, just keep your sense of humor. You know, keep the way you look at the world, and sooner or later, a woman will touch your dick, or man. Listen, I'm not hating. You know, a guy will come around sooner or later that will want to touch your dick and balls. Thank you guys for watching, and keep your heads up. Ain't no use in being a Mary. There is one more piece of advice I want to give you guys, and that is to, if there's a girl or a guy, as I said, I don't care, but if there's a person who you feel might be a little into you, and you know you're really into them, go for it, man. You know what I mean? Just go for it. Just I'm not saying rape them, because that would be really bad. Do not rape them. You know, shoot your shot. You know what I mean? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You know, just say what's up. Send them a Snapchat. Ask them if they want to, you know, go to Taco Bell. You know what I mean? Just ask them to go get some food. You don't even have to say like, hey, I like you a lot. Would you like to? Just ask them out. And you know what I mean? And just, you know, because you'll always sit back regretting what would have happened if you asked, and what would have happened if you shot your shot. And that's the thing that'll keep you up at night when you're my age. And, you know, that chance of it happening makes it all worth it. And I don't know, just go for it. You know, it's better to be told no and have gone for it than to not go for it and always wonder what could have been. But yeah, no, I'm done talking next to this toilet. It makes a lot of noise. You actually have to jiggle the handle a little bit afterwards to get that sound to stop. I thought. I hope like putting a candle on it like didn't fuck it up. Oh, there it goes.